The UES Vengeance moved silently through space, its sleek black hull barely visible against the darkness. On the bridge, Hammond sat in the commander's chair, his cane resting against the armrest. Around him, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for the battle that would decide humanity's fate. Zethkar fleet approaching Earth orbit, reported Lieutenant Wright. 127 ships, including Vexthen's super dreadnought. Hammond nodded. And our forces. Commander Fisher checked her display. 23 Phoenix ships ready. Thraxi fleet in position near Saturn. Vondari jammers active and ready. And the civilian ships? Hammond asked. All evacuated to the safe zone behind the moon, sir, Fisher confirmed. Hammond took a deep breath. Everything was in place. The plan they had developed with their new allies was risky, but it was their best chance. Open a channel to all ships, Hammond ordered. When the channel was open, Hammond spoke clearly and confidently. This is Admiral Hammond to all Earth and Allied forces. Today we face the greatest threat humanity has ever known. The Zethkar came to our home, expecting us to surrender. Instead, they found a species willing to fight for its freedom with every last breath. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Many brave souls have given their lives in this war. We fight today to honor their sacrifice and to secure a future for our children. Stay with your battle groups. Follow the plan. And remember, the Zethkar expect us to be predictable. Let's show them how wrong they are. As the massive Zethkar armada approached Earth, Supreme Overlord Vexthen stood on the bridge of his super dreadnought, confident in victory. His scouts reported that the humans had gathered a small fleet to defend their planet. It would not be enough. Begin the attack sequence, Vexthen ordered. No mercy for the humans. The Zethkar ships moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons powering up. But suddenly, alarms blared across their fleet. Supreme Overlord, cried a Zethkar officer. Enemy ships appearing from Saturn's rings. The hidden Thraxi fleet emerged, their crystalline ships catching the sunlight as they accelerated toward the Zethkar's exposed flank. A trap, Vexthen hissed. Redirect half our ships to destroy them. But as the Zethkar tried to adjust their formation, something else went wrong. Their targeting systems failed, their weapons losing lock on the human ships. The Vondari disruptors are working, Fisher reported on the Vengeance. They can't target us precisely. Hammond leaned forward. Now, all ships, attack pattern Omega. The human Phoenix ships, previously hidden behind Earth's moon, raced forward. They moved in unpredictable patterns that the Zethkar computers couldn't track. The battle became chaos, exactly what Hammond had planned. In the middle of the fight, the Vengeance headed straight for Vexthen's super dreadnought. Energy blasts rocked the ship, but its advanced shields held. Get us alongside their command ship, Hammond ordered. Prepare boarding teams. Minutes later, Hammond led a small force onto the Zethkar vessel. Despite his injured leg, he moved with determination, his particle rifle ready. They fought their way through the alien corridors until they reached the bridge. Supreme Overlord Vexthen turned as Hammond entered, his 4 eyes narrowing with hatred. The human who defied us, Vexthen said. You have caused us much trouble. You brought this on yourself, Hammond replied. You came to our home and demanded our surrender. You killed innocent people to demonstrate your power. We are superior, Vexthen insisted, drawing a curved energy blade. That is the way of the universe. No, Hammond said firmly. The way of the universe is adaptation. Working together. Learning from others. That's humanity's strength. And that's why we're going to win. The two leaders clashed, their weapons flashing in the dim light of the alien bridge. Despite his injuries, Hammond fought with skill born from decades of training. Finally, his weapon found its mark, and Vexthen fell to his knees. Why? The alien leader gasped. Why wouldn't you simply submit like the others? Hammond stood over him. Because humans don't surrender their home. Not to anyone. With Vexithan defeated, the Zethkar fleet began to withdraw. The war wasn't completely over, but the tide had turned. Earth had won its freedom. 3 months later, Hammond stood on the bridge of the Vengeance again, but this time as Admiral of the new Interstellar Alliance. Beside him stood representatives from the Thraxi and Vundari, along with other species recently freed from Zethkar control. "Ready to depart, Admiral," said Commander Fisher. Hammond nodded, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so threatening, but now held promise. "Take us out," he ordered. "We have a galaxy to rebuild." Hammond walked slowly down the corridor of the moon base, leaning heavily on a metal cane. His body was still healing from the injuries he suffered on the Defiance, but he refused to stay in bed any longer. There was too much work to do. "Sir, you should be resting," said Lieutenant Patel, who walked beside him. Hammond smiled grimly. "I've rested enough. 3 weeks is too long to be away from this fight." They entered a large conference room where Admiral Peterson and Commander Fisher were studying a holographic map of the solar system. The map showed the positions of Earth forces in blue and Zethkar forces in red. There were far more red dots than blue. "Jack," Peterson said, her face lighting up. "It's good to see you on your feet." "Good to be back," Hammond replied. He looked at the map. "Catch me up." Fisher stepped forward. "Project Phoenix has been a success. Our new ships have hit 7 Zethkar supply depots in the last 2 weeks. The enemy is confused by our tactics and can't seem to track our ships." Hammond nodded with satisfaction. "And how are our other projects going?" "Dr. Rivers' VI system is working better than expected," Peterson said. "It's predicting Zethkar movements with 93% accuracy now. And we've discovered something else." She pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show a different star system. "This is the Proxima Centauri system. We detected unusual communications coming from there." "What kind of communications?" Hammond asked. Patil answered. "They're using an encryption similar to the Zethkar, but with subtle differences. We believe it's from another species that might be fighting against them." Hammond's eyes widened. "The Voxteri rebellion I heard about." "We think so," Peterson confirmed. "I sent Ambassador Eliza Monroe with one of our new Phoenix ships to make contact. If there are others fighting the Zethkar, we need allies." Hammond lowered himself carefully into a chair, his mind racing with possibilities. "How soon can we hear back?" "Monroe reached the system yesterday," Fisher said. "We're waiting for—" She was interrupted by a comm officer who rushed into the room. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Monroe's ship." A hologram changed to show the face of Ambassador Monroe, a woman with dark skin and bright, intelligent eyes. "Admiral Peterson, I have wonderful news. I've made contact with 2 species, the Thraxi and the Vundari. Both have been fighting the Zethkar for years." The camera panned to show 2 alien beings standing beside her. One was tall and slender with iridescent skin that shifted colors. The other was shorter, with a broad body and 6 limbs. "This is High Speaker Zolar of the Thraxi," Monroe introduced, "and Engineer Commander Dex of the Vundari. They're eager to form an alliance with humans against our common enemy." The tall alien spoke, its voice melodic. "Your species has impressed us, humans. No other race has resisted the Zethkar so effectively. We have technology and information to share." The shorter alien nodded its wide head. "The Vundari have developed systems to disrupt Zethkar targeting capabilities. Together, we can defeat them." Hope spread across Hammond's face. For the first time since the war began, he felt certain they could win. "Ambassador Monroe, bring our new allies to the moon base immediately. We have plans to discuss." After the transmission ended, Hammond turned to the others. "This changes everything." "It certainly does," Peterson agreed. "But we've just received intelligence that Supreme Overlord Vexthan is gathering a massive fleet for one final push against Earth. They're committing nearly all their remaining forces to crush us once and for all." Hammond stood up, ignoring the pain in his legs. Then we need to be ready. How soon can our allies get here? 3 days, Fisher said. Hammond nodded firmly. Then we have 3 days to prepare the biggest surprise the Zethkar have ever seen. He looked at the holographic map, studying the enemy positions. They think they're coming to finish us off. Instead, they're walking into a trap. As the others began discussing strategy, Hammond felt a sense of determination stronger than ever before. The Zethkar had declared war on humanity, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant and filled it with terrible resolve. The beeping of medical machines filled the small room in the underground military hospital. Commander Hammond lay in bed, his body wrapped in bandages. He had been unconscious for 3 days since they pulled him from the wreckage of the Defiance. The doctors weren't sure if he would live. Admiral Peterson stood by his bedside, her face tired and lined with worry. The war was not going well. Though Hammond's sacrifice had given the evacuation ships time to escape, the Zethkar had quickly replaced their lost command ship and resumed their attack. "How is he?" asked Kate Fisher as she entered the room. She wore the uniform of a commander now, her promotion rushed through after Hammond's injury. "Still fighting," Peterson said quietly, "just like the rest of us." They stood in silence for a moment, watching Hammond's chest rise and fall with each shallow breath. "The Defense Council is meeting in 20 minutes, Peterson finally said. "They want to discuss your battle plan." Fisher nodded. After Hammond had been injured, she had developed a new strategy based on everything they had learned about the Zethkar. Many on the council thought it was too risky, but they were running out of options. "Do you think they'll approve it?" Fisher asked. Peterson sighed. "They have to. We're losing this war, Kate. The Zethkar have taken most of our major cities. Our people are hiding in bunkers or fighting as resistance. We need something bold." When they reached the council chamber, Chief Engineer Patricia Wong was waiting with her team. Behind them stood a large object covered with a tarp. "Everyone is here," announced General Wright. "Commander Fisher, you have the floor." Fisher stepped forward. "Thank you, sir. As you all know, our conventional weapons have limited effect against Zethkar technology. But thanks to information from Lieutenant Patel's Mars mission and Dr. Rivers' analysis of their communication patterns, we have identified 2 key weaknesses." She activated a hologram showing the Zethkar battleship. "First, their ships follow predictable attack patterns that can be countered if we have enough processing power to calculate their moves in advance. Second, their ships use a unique form of energy shielding that has a specific resonance frequency." Dr. Nathan Rivers, a thin man with thick glasses, stepped forward. "I've developed a virtual intelligence system that can predict Zethkar movements with 87% accuracy. It's not perfect, but it gives us a fighting chance." Fisher nodded her thanks. "And now, Chief Engineer Wong will present the second part of our plan." Wong walked to the covered object and pulled away the tarp. Underneath was a sleek, black ship model unlike anything the council had seen before. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wong said with pride, "I present Project Phoenix. Using wreckage from downed Zethkar ships, we've reverse-engineered their shield technology and weapon systems. These ships are smaller than theirs, but just as powerful. And because they use modified versions of Zethkar tech, the enemy sensors have trouble detecting them." The council members leaned forward, examining the model with newfound hope in their eyes. "How many of these ships can we build?" asked Admiral Peterson. "We have 5 completed now," Wong replied. "With the factories on the moon base working around the clock, we can have 20 more in 2 weeks." General Wright frowned. "The Zethkar have hundreds of ships. Even with these new vessels, we're still outnumbered. That's why we don't attack their fleet directly," Fisher explained. "We target their supply lines instead." She brought up a new hologram showing the solar system. "The Zethkar have established supply depots on Mars, Venus, and several moons of Jupiter. Their rigid command structure means these outposts are lightly defended. If we cut off their supplies, their main fleet will be forced to respond." The council chamber buzzed with discussion. It was a bold plan, perhaps even a desperate one. But it offered something they hadn't had in weeks: hope. Admiral Peterson stood up. "Commander Fisher, you have the full resources of Earth's remaining fleet. Project Phoenix is now our top priority." As the meeting ended, Fisher looked at the ship model once more. Hammond had been right all along. The Zethkar's greatest weakness was their inability to adapt to humanity's unpredictable tactics. And now, humanity would use that weakness to strike back. Fire rained from the sky over Chicago. Marine Captain Frank Delgado crouched behind a fallen concrete pillar, shouting orders into his comm unit. Around him, the city burned. The Zethkar had begun their full assault on Earth 12 hours ago, and humanity was fighting for its survival. "Hold the line at Michigan Avenue," Delgado ordered. "Keep those civilians moving toward the bunkers." His squad of 20 Marines spread out along the ruined street, firing at the approaching Zethkar ground forces. The aliens moved with eerie coordination, their armor deflecting most standard bullets. But the new armor-piercing rounds developed in the last week were having some effect. "Sir, the east route is blocked," reported Sergeant Liz Miller, her face streaked with soot. "We need to redirect the evacuation." Delgado nodded, checking his tactical map. "Use the underground tunnels and get those anti-aircraft batteries online. We need to give those AVEC ships a chance to get out." Above them, the sky was filled with explosions as human and Zethkar ships battled for control of Earth's orbit. Occasionally, a ship would fall, streaking through the atmosphere like a meteor before crashing miles away. In orbit, Commander Hammond stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, blood running down his forehead from a wound sustained when the ship took a direct hit. Half the bridge crew was dead or injured, and the ship's systems were failing. "Shields at 12%, reported Officer Wright, his console sparking. "We can't take another hit like that last one." Hammond looked at the view screen. 5 Zethkar battleships surrounded them, with the massive command ship looming behind them. They had managed to destroy 2 enemy vessels, but the cost had been high. 3 human ships had already been lost, and the rest were scattered across Earth's orbit, fighting their own desperate battles. "What's the status of the civilian evacuation ships?" Hammond asked. Lieutenant Fisher, now serving as his second-in-command, checked her screen. "The Oakland and Sydney evacuation groups have reached the moon base. Chicago and London groups are still trying to break through." Hammond made a decision. "Set course to intercept the Zethkar ships approaching the Chicago evacuation route." "Sir," Fisher said quietly, "if we do that, we'll be cut off from the rest of the fleet. It's suicide." Hammond looked around at his battered crew. "We took an oath to protect Earth and her people. Those evacuation ships are carrying thousands of civilians." He straightened, ignoring the pain from his injuries. "Plot the course, Lieutenant." The Defiance turned, engines burning as it accelerated toward the enemy formation. The Zethkar, surprised by the sudden change in tactics, took a moment to respond. "Sir, I have an idea," Fisher said suddenly. "The Zethkar follow strict attack patterns. What if we use that against them?" Hammond nodded. "I'm listening." "We could shut down all systems except life support and drift, making them think we're more damaged than we are. When they move in to finish us off, we hit them with everything we've got." Hammond finished. "The Hammond special it is." The crew worked quickly, shutting down weapons, shields, and propulsion. The ship went dark, drifting toward the enemy formation. The Zethkar took the bait. Their command ship moved closer, preparing to destroy the apparently helpless human vessel. "All hands, brace for impact," Hammond ordered. "On my mark. Now." The Defiance came to life, all power diverted to weapons. At point-blank range, they fired every missile and energy cannon directly at the Zethkar command ship's bridge. The alien vessel's shields couldn't withstand the concentrated assault at such close range. Explosions ripped through the massive ship as the Defiance continued its barrage, but the victory came at a terrible price. 2 other Zethkar ships fired on the Defiance, tearing through its hull. "Evacuate the bridge," Hammond shouted as systems exploded around them. He was thrown across the room as another blast hit the ship. His vision blurred as pain shot through his body. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the Zethkar command ship breaking apart, and the evacuation ships from Chicago racing past toward the safety of the moon base. On Earth, Captain Delgado looked up as the sky lit up with the death of the alien command ship. For the first time in 12 hours, he allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. The battle was far from over, but humanity was still fighting. The red dust of Mars swirled around Lieutenant Linda Patil as she crouched behind a rock formation. Next to her, Alan Hicks checked his demolition charges one last time. The rest of their 5-person team was spread out, hidden among the rocks surrounding the Zethkar base. "I still think this is crazy," whispered Hicks, his breath fogging his helmet. Patil adjusted her translator device. As an expert in alien languages, she was the only one who could make sense of the Zethkar communication systems. "Commander Hammond believes this will work. That's good enough for me." The Zethkar had established their forward base on Mars 3 days ago. From here, they were launching attacks on Earth's defenses. Hammond had proposed a risky plan: infiltrate the base, gather intelligence, and sabotage their systems. "Team check," Paddle said into her comm. "Position 1, ready," responded Sergeant Joe Miller. "Position 2, ready," said Corporal Ben Garcia. "Position 3, ready," confirmed Dr. Sharon Reed, their tech specialist. Paddle took a deep breath. "Execute Phase 1. Dr. Reed activated a small device that sent out an electromagnetic pulse, carefully calibrated to affect only the Zethkar sensors in the immediate area. For 30 seconds, the team would be invisible to the alien security systems. They moved quickly. Years of training made their movements smooth and silent despite the bulky Mars suits. They'd reached the base's outer wall just as the EMP effect faded. Hicks placed a small charge on the wall and stepped back. There was a muffled thump, and a hole appeared, just large enough for them to slip through one at a time. Inside, the air was different. The Zethkar had created their own atmosphere. Patil signaled, and they removed their helmets, replacing them with smaller breathing masks and communication devices. "We have 15 minutes before the patrol comes back around," Reed whispered, checking her scanner. They moved through dim purple corridors, avoiding the few Zethkar they saw. The aliens were tall and moved with a strange grace that reminded Patil of insects. Their 4 eyes seemed to look in all directions at once. Finally, they'd reached the command center. Through a clear barrier, they could see several high-ranking Zethkar gathered around a holographic display of Earth. Patil activated her translator as Reed attached a data-stealing device to a computer port. "The humans continue to resist," said one Zethkar, its voice translated into Patil's earpiece. "Their tactics are unexpected." "Irrelevant," responded a larger Zethkar wearing ornate armor. "They cannot match our firepower. The Supreme Overlord wants this planet secured before the Vox-Terri rebellion spreads to this sector." Patil exchanged glances with Reed. This was new information. The Zethkar were fighting on another front. "Their resistance is stronger than predicted," argued the first alien. "We should request additional ships." "No," the leader snapped. "We follow the invasion protocol exactly as established. Deviation from protocol is punishable by death. We attack their major cities tomorrow as planned." Patil nodded to Reed, who disconnected her device. They had what they came for: proof that the Zethkar's strict hierarchy and rigid protocols were their weakness. They couldn't adapt to humanity's unpredictable tactics. As they turned to leave, Hicks stumbled, knocking over a piece of equipment. The sound echoed through the corridor. "Intruders," a voice called out in the alien language. "Run," Patil ordered. They sprinted back the way they came, alien alarms blaring around them. Sergeant Miller and Corporal Garcia provided covering fire as energy weapons blazed past them. "Plan B," Hicks yelled, pulling out his remaining charges. He quickly set them on the support pillars as they ran. They reached their entry point just as a group of Zethkar soldiers rounded the corner. Dr. Reed was hit in the leg by an energy blast, and Miller dragged her through the hole. Once outside, Hicks detonated the charges. The base's eastern section collapsed, buying them precious time to escape. As they ran toward their hidden shuttle, Patil activated her long-range communicator. "Commander Hammond, this is Lieutenant Patil. Mission accomplished. We have the intel and planted Dr. Rivers' virus in their system. And sir, we learned something important. The Zethkar are fighting another war. They're stretched thin." As the shuttle lifted off, they could see Zethkar ships scrambling to find them. But it was too late. They had what they came for, and the knowledge that humanity had a fighting chance. Colonel Ryan Cooper floated in the darkness of space, his combat suit hidden among the rocks of Earth's asteroid belt. 5 of his best soldiers waited nearby, each one barely visible against the dark stones. They had been waiting for 3 hours. "Contact," whispered Sergeant Amy Wells through the comm. 3 Zethkar scout ships approaching Sector 7. "Hold positions," Cooper ordered. "Remember, we hit fast and disappear faster." The plan, called Operation Defiant Stand, was simple but dangerous. With Earth outgunned and outmatched, Admiral Peterson had approved Hammond's strategy of guerrilla warfare in space. They couldn't win in a direct fight, so they would bleed the enemy with 1,000 small cuts. The 3 alien vessels moved slowly through the asteroid field, their purple lights scanning the rocks. They weren't expecting an attack. Why would they? Their technology was far superior to humanity's. "Now," Cooper said when the ships reached the perfect position. 6 human soldiers pushed off from their hiding spots, small thrusters carrying them silently toward the alien ships. Each soldier carried a magnetic mine powerful enough to cripple a ship's engines. Cooper reached his target first, attaching the mine to the hull near what intelligence suggested was the engine core. "Mines planted," Sergeant Wells confirmed as the last soldier completed the task. Falling back to position Alpha, Cooper and his team retreated to the safety of the larger asteroids. When they were clear, Cooper pressed the detonator. 3 explosions lit up the darkness. 2 of the ships immediately lost power and began to drift. The third spun wildly, its engines damaged but still functioning. "Control, this is Asteroid Team 1. Cooper reported. 2 kills, 1 wounded. Proceeding to extraction point." Back on the UES Defiance, Hammond received the report with grim satisfaction. Cooper's team was just one of 15 similar groups hiding throughout the solar system. For the past week, they had been attacking Zethkar ships whenever possible. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Fisher from her station. "Colonel Cooper's team is clear. That brings our total to 11 enemy ships disabled or destroyed." Hammond nodded. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. "And our losses." Fisher's face fell. The UES Courage was destroyed near Mars. 28 crew lost. The UES Guardian is damaged but managed to escape. Hammond closed his eyes briefly. More deaths to add to his growing list. "Get me Engineer Delgado." Olivia Delgado appeared on screen, her hands dirty with engine grease. "Commander, we finished modifications on 5 more mining vessels. They're not pretty, but they're armed and ready." "Good work," Hammond said. The idea to convert mining ships into stealth bombers had been Delgado's, and it was working better than expected. The mining vessels were designed to move through asteroid fields and had powerful drills that, with modification, made excellent weapons against alien hulls. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Sam Wright, "we're picking up a transmission. The Zethkar are calling for reinforcements. A large battle group is entering the system." Hammond's face hardened. "How many ships?" "At least 30, sir, including what appears to be their flagship." The bridge fell silent. Earth had fewer than 20 combat-ready vessels, many of them hastily converted civilian ships. "They're ahead of schedule," Hammond said quietly. "The ultimatum gave us 3 more days. Looks like our attacks got their attention." Fisher said. Hammond walked to the main view screen, studying the incoming enemy fleet. The ships were massive, bristling with weapons, but there was something in their formation. Lieutenant Fisher, look at their approach vector. Are they following standard patterns? Fisher analyzed the data. Yes, sir. Almost identical to their previous attacks. A slow smile spread across Hammond's face. They're not adapting. They're responding exactly as they've done before. Is that good? Wright asked. Hammond turned to his crew, new energy in his voice. It means they're predictable, and predictable enemies can be beaten. He pointed to the largest ship in the formation. That's their command vessel. Supreme Overlord Vex, then, is likely on board. What are your orders, sir? Fisher asked. Hammond's eyes narrowed. Prepare the Defiance for battle, and send word to all ships. Operation Hammerstrike begins in 6 hours. As the crew rushed to their stations, Hammond looked once more at the enemy fleet. The Zethkar thought humans would be easy to conquer. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The large meeting room in the United Earth Defense Headquarters buzzed with urgent voices. Admiral Diane Peterson stood at the head of the long table, her gray hair pulled back tightly, her face grim. Around her sat the 12 members of the Defense Council, along with Commander Hammond, who had arrived back on Earth just hours ago. Quiet, please, Admiral Peterson said. The room fell silent. Commander Hammond has shared the details of his encounter with the Zethkar Dominion. We have 12 days until they return, expecting our surrender. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses stood up. Admiral, I'm Intelligence Officer Greg Martinez. We've analyzed the data from the Valiant sensors. He tapped a screen, and a hologram appeared in the center of the table. It showed several star systems with red markers. We believe the Zethkar have conquered at least 7 other civilizations using similar tactics. They demand surrender, then take over regardless of the response. Murmurs spread around the table. A woman with short blonde hair raised her hand. Admiral, Lieutenant Kate Fisher, Tactical Analysis. The Zethkar ship showed movement patterns that suggest weaknesses in their navigation system. They seem to rely heavily on precedent routes and have trouble with quick course changes. Hammond leaned forward. Could we use that against them? Lieutenant Fisher nodded. Possibly, sir. Their technology is advanced, but their tactics seem rigid, almost predictable. That won't matter if they outnumber us 10-1, said General Paul Wright, his voice deep and pessimistic. We should consider their surrender terms. Maybe we can negotiate better conditions. Surrender is not an option, Hammond said firmly. You didn't see what they did to Franklin Station. These aliens don't negotiate. The room's large screen suddenly flashed with an incoming transmission. Admiral, said a communications officer from the doorway, we're receiving a broadcast on all channels. It's them. Put it through, ordered Peterson. Supreme Overlord Vex Then's four-eyed face filled the screen. Humans of Earth, to demonstrate our seriousness, we have placed a weapon in orbit around your moon. Observe. The image changed to show a satellite-like device. A beam shot from it toward Earth, striking somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. The room erupted in chaos as reports flooded in. Impact near uninhabited waters, sir, reported an officer. But the energy readings are off the charts. If they had aimed at a city. Vex then reappeared. That was merely 10% of the weapon's capacity. When we return, you will surrender half your population as workers, or we will target your most populated areas. Prepare your people for selection. The screen went dark. The room exploded with angry voices. Admiral Peterson tried to restore order. We need a plan, people. Not shouting. What plan? General Wright stood up, his face red. You saw that weapon. We can't fight this. We have to try. Fisher insisted. Their ship design suggests they've never faced serious resistance. They don't expect us to fight back effectively. And die anyway. Wright demanded. Hammond had remained silent, studying the hologram of the Zethkar ship. Now he slowly rose to his feet. The room quieted as he walked to the center of the table. I watched them murder 47 innocent scientists without warning, Hammond said, his voice low but carrying to every corner. They didn't come here for peaceful contact. They came to conquer. And now they threaten to slaughter millions of our people. He looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. Throughout human history, bullies have always made the same mistake. They believe that because they're stronger, they can take whatever they want. And sometimes they can. But humans have a breaking point, a point where we stop being afraid and start getting angry. Hammond pointed at the screen where Vexthan's face had been. They think we'll bow down because they have better ships and bigger guns. They think we'll sacrifice half our people to save the rest. He shook his head. They don't understand who they're dealing with. The room was completely silent now. Hammond's voice rose with conviction. You want war, he said, as if speaking directly to Vexthan. Then war it is. Commander Jack Hammond stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The strange alien ship hung in space before them, its dark metal hull reflecting the distant sun. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species, and Hammond felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Open communications channel, Hammond ordered. His voice was steady despite the tension that filled the bridge. Lieutenant Sam Wright nodded. Channel open. Sir. The view screen flickered, revealing a tall, thin creature with pale blue skin and 4 eyes. It wore ornate armor that gleamed under the lights of its ship. I am Supreme Overlord Vexthan of the Zethkar Dominion, the alien said in perfect English. To whom am I speaking? Hammond stepped forward. Commander Jack Hammond of the United Earth Defense Fleet, we welcome you to our solar system and extend friendship on behalf of humanity. Vexthan made a sound that might have been a laugh. How quaint. Commander, I am not here for friendship. The Zethkar Dominion requires new territories and resources. Your planet has been selected for integration. Hammond frowned. Integration. You humans will surrender your planet and serve the Dominion. Those who resist will be eliminated. Those who comply will live as productive subjects. The bridge fell silent. Hammond's second-in-command, Commander Lisa Reeves, whispered, Sir, this can't be happening. Hammond straightened his back. Supreme Overlord, humans don't surrender their home to anyone. We propose peaceful cooperation instead. There's enough room in this galaxy for both our species. Vexthan's upper eyes narrowed. You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. It is a notification of your new reality, to demonstrate our resolve. The alien pressed something off-screen. Hammond watched in horror as a beam of energy shot from the alien vessel toward the nearby research station. Franklin Station. Get those people out of there, Hammond shouted. But it was too late. The beam struck the station, and it exploded in a silent flash of light. 47 scientists, including Hammond's old friend Dr. Susan Lloyd, gone in an instant. No. Hammond slammed his fist on the console. Vexthan seemed unmoved by the destruction. That was merely a small demonstration. You have 14 Earth days to prepare your surrender. When we return, we will expect your leaders to meet us with terms of your complete submission. The screen went dark as the alien ship turned and accelerated away at impossible speed. Sir, they'd gone into some kind of faster-than-light travel, reported Officer Cindy Baker from her station. They're just gone. Hammond stood frozen, staring at the debris field that had once been Franklin Station. The faces of the scientists he'd spoken with just yesterday flashed through his mind. Susan had been his friend since academy days. Sir, Commander Reeves approached. We need to warn Earth. Hammond nodded slowly. Set course for home. Maximum speed. He turned to Communications Officer Wright. Send a Priority 1 message to Admiral Peterson. First contact established. Hostile intent confirmed. Casualties. His voice caught. 47 dead in unprovoked attack. As the Valiant turned toward Earth, Hammond walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. The Zethkar had made a critical mistake. They might have superior technology and weapons, but they didn't understand humans. Humans didn't surrender their home. They didn't bow to bullies. And they certainly didn't forget their dead. They'd just declared war on the wrong species, Hammond whispered. The ship's engines hummed as they accelerated to full speed. They had 14 days to prepare Earth for the fight of its life. Hammond knew humanity faced its greatest challenge, but as he thought of Susan and the others who died today, he made a silent promise. The Zethkar wanted war. Then war they would get.